You're standing in a crowd, thousands of people around you, and then it happens. A single note hits, a voice cracks at exactly the right moment, a wall of sound builds and releases, and suddenly your arms are covered in tiny bumps, the hair on the back of your neck is standing up, and a shiver runs straight down your spine. You didn't choose this. Your body just did it completely on its own, in response to something that isn't cold, isn't dangerous, and isn't threatening you in any way. It's just sound. So why does your body react to music the exact same way it reacts to a genuine physical threat? Let's start with what goosebumps actually are because the mechanism itself is ancient and has nothing to do with music at all. Goosebumps happen because of tiny muscles at the base of each hair follicle called erector pili muscles. And when they contract, they pull the hair upright and create that raised, bumpy texture on your skin. This reaction is triggered by your sympathetic nervous system, the same system responsible for your fight or flight response. In furrier ancestors, this served two very practical purposes. Raising the fur trapped a layer of air against the skin for insulation in the cold, and it also made the animal look physically larger and more intimidating when it was frightened or threatened. A defense mechanism still visible today when a startled cat's fur puffs out. Humans inherited this exact wiring, muscles and all, even though we lost most of our body hair millions of years ago. The system is still fully installed, it just doesn't have much fur left to work with. So the reflex clearly evolved for cold and danger. Which raises the real question. Why does a swelling chorus or a perfectly timed key change hijack a system built for survival? The leading explanation involves a part of the brain called the amygdala, which processes emotional intensity, working together with the brain's reward circuitry. Researchers using brain imaging have found that when people experience chills from music, there's a measurable spike in activity in regions associated with reward and pleasure, the same regions that respond to food, to romantic connection, and notably, to certain drugs. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter tied to anticipation and reward, actually rises in two separate waves. One right before the emotional peak in a song hits, as your brain predicts something significant is coming, and a second wave right as the peak actually arrives. Your brain is essentially rewarding you twice, once for correctly anticipating a pattern, and once for the payoff itself. This connects to something deeper about how human brains process music in the first place. Music is built on patterns, rhythm, melody, harmony, structures that repeat and build expectation. Your brain is a prediction machine, constantly trying to guess what happens next, based on everything it has already heard in the song. When a piece of music sets up a clear pattern and then does something slightly unexpected, a sudden key change, an unresolved chord that finally resolves, a voice that breaks with real emotional strain, it creates a tiny gap between what your brain predicted and what actually happened. That gap, that moment of surprise layered directly on top of intense emotional meaning, appears to be exactly what triggers the chill response. It's not just intensity that does it. It's intensity combined with the unexpected. Interestingly, not everyone experiences this the same way, and the differences are genuinely fascinating. Studies have found that people who get chills from music tend to score higher on a personality trait called openness to experience. And brain scans suggest these individuals may have structurally denser connections between the auditory processing regions of the brain and the emotional processing regions. In other words, for some people, the wiring between hearing and feeling is simply more direct. Roughly two-thirds of people report experiencing musical chills at some point, while the remaining third rarely or never do. And this isn't a flaw or a failure of appreciation. It appears to be a genuine difference in how tightly sound and emotion are linked in the brain. There's also an evolutionary theory worth considering here, one that reframes the entire phenomenon. Some researchers argue that music itself may have evolved, at least in part, to deliberately exploit this ancient threat response system. As a shared emotional chill experienced by an entire group at the same moment, during a ritual, a ceremony, a shared performance, may have functioned as a powerful social bonding mechanism for early human communities. If music can synchronize the exact same intense physiological reaction across dozens or hundreds of people simultaneously, it becomes a remarkably efficient tool for building group cohesion, for making a tribe feel more like a single unified organism than a collection of separate individuals. So the next time a song gives you chills, what you're actually feeling is a genuinely ancient survival circuit, one built millions of years ago for cold and danger, being completely repurposed by your brain for something it was never designed to handle. Your skin doesn't know the difference between a predator and a perfect chord change. It just knows something significant is happening, and it reacts exactly the same way it always has.